and go.
So for the analysis of Starbucks, we have the three most important actions that they can take immediately, and the three that they can take in 5 years, or the three most important actions they can take for their meet their 5-year goals, and then also as well as the three for their 25 years. So to start with the actions that they can undertake immediately, I had listed challenge the competition, leverage technology, and utilize community resources. I think that Starbucks can really capitalize on what they're already doing by, one, entering in that market for those take-home drinks. With being in grad school especially, every now and then I'd splurge on Starbucks, but with me working full-time and being in grad school full-time, I really do go to the grocery store and buy pre-made drinks, and I take it to work every single day. And that's a market they just completely lost me as a customer, because I don't find that the quality of what they already have on the shelves equates to the quality in their store. And so for that reason, I opt for a different option. So I think that they could revise that, challenge their competition in that way, because I'd certainly like to continue to use their product when it's not really accessible to me. Leveraging their technology, they've already capitalized on it, but there's always room to grow. There's all, I don't find that it's the most user-friendly app, so I think they can close the gaps on that, as well as utilizing that data to get closer to the customer. They've been pretty good about that so far, but just still looking for innovative ways to utilize that technology to their advantage so they can continue to really meet the needs of the customer. And then utilize community resources such as Uber Eats. There have been times that I've been at work, I can't leave my desk, and I'd really like the option to have a nice cup of coffee. I mean, if I'm really tired at the end of the day, it's really worth it. I'm a big coffee lover, so it's worth the extra couple bucks to get that premium coffee, to enjoy, to have something to help my day go by a little bit quicker. So I think that taking advantage of the community resources in that aspect would be really nice. As far as 5-year goals, continuing to take risks. I think they've really pushed themselves to the max throughout this entire case. You can see the whole evolution of the case is just one example after the next of them pushing, the risks taking, and they've continued to be successful. So why not continue to do that, and then reevaluate if they overcome some, or if they have some hardships come. And then assessing new emerging markets would always be useful. There's a ton that they have not entered into. And so assessing those emerging markets so they can continue to expand. They've already proven that they can handle the capacity of, or they can handle a large growth rate, and especially in unexpected markets. So continue to push that, continue to grow, and continue to gain revenue in unexpected territories and markets. And establish that plane of entry. They throughout the case study, they talked about how they very carefully entered China, and taking that same measure when entering other emerging markets would definitely help set them up for success in the next 5 years as they continue to expand. And then for their 25-year goals, really, I find that identifying who they want to be, what they are today may not be successful, may not be the same strategy that works in 25 years. Who knows, with the evolution of technology, the evolution with new generations, what that's going to bring. And so kind of figuring that out as they go and as those changes come, but kind of having that plan in mind so they can start working towards it, and then tweaking changes as they learn more about the changes in the market and adapting accordingly. And then strategizing for the down economy. It's a premium product. As soon as the economy hits, people aren't going to be splurging. The rational market wouldn't be splurging on, extra coffee. And so figuring out how to manage that, and, how to overcome that effectively. And then innovating in the meantime. You can't really innovate in the next 5 years. I mean, you might be pressed on time and quality if you try and get something out in 5 years, but starting with the innovation now, working on, sending it out through the company, see how people feel about it, get that pushback, that feedback, and to critique maybe some innovative ideas, and then taking the time to launch it any innovative ideas appropriately. So that in a nutshell is pretty much the analysis that I have for what they should do immediately, what they should consider for the next 5 years, and what they should consider for the next 25.
Sure.
Okay, so I was assigned this slide, and it's basically discussing the Indian legend listed above, which essentially talks about 6 blind men all touching a different part of an elephant and making assumptions based on that one little bit that they felt. And it's kind of just showing how too focused or too narrow of a perspective can be detrimental to a company. Strategy paradigms with a super narrow target can mislead decision makers, creating blind spots or creating like a false sense of positioning, and they can lose sight of their mission and their vision if they're too focused on specific things. So I actually put a little example. There's a super zoomed in picture, and just looking at it, you would think it's the sun or a flower or a star or a reflection in a lake. And then when you zoom out and see the big picture, it's Van Gogh's Starry Night. And even when you're just looking at the first picture, you don't know which star it is, and you don't know where it is or what its purpose is. So it just kind of shows the danger of not looking at the big picture and making assumptions based off of that. And then it talks about different paradigms and how they can kind of paint that inaccurate picture. For example, the resource-based theory focuses on internal factors, tangible and intangible resources, and things like that, but it kind of ignores Porter's 5 forces, which focus on external factors in the environment, like new entrants and buyers and suppliers and all that, and kind of the firm's positioning. And you kind of need both of those because one without the other is incomplete. Just like the dynamic capabilities, if you get too focused on what you're capable of, it kind of turns into, okay, we can, but should we? So you just kind of have to be careful about that. And then transactional governance is kind of the same way. It's kind of misplaced focus. Not that either of them or any of them are wrong individually, but if you look at them without looking at the others, it can be misleading. And then it continues on to the next slide. Yes, okay. And then another question for my slide was, could we build an all-encompassing model, paradigm, or formula for perfect strategic management or firm performance? And I don't think that's possible. Strategic management is more of an art than a science. There's no one formula that's going to ensure the exact result every time. It's not a 1 + 1 = 2 kind of scenario. And even if it were, perception is reality, and how companies are perceived dictates how people perceive their actions. So one company could do this whole 1 + 1 and get 2, and another company could do the same 1 + 1, but because they're perceived as being untrustworthy or sketchy, they're not going to get that same 2 result. They're going to get probably less, but you never know. And then even if we were, again, able to create this model, we live in an ever-changing market. And I think it would kind of turn into a SWOT analysis example, where by the time you've perfected encompassing every possible factor, it would be obsolete at that point because everything would be different. So I don't think we could make one. I think you just kind of have to pick and choose, well, not pick and choose, but incorporate bits of all of the paradigms and try to focus on the big picture and essentially the playing to win choice cascade of who you are and what you want, where you're going, where you're going to go, how you're going to get there, what you need to get there, and then systems you can put in place to ensure that you get there, which is kind of my personal strategic management strategy. So it's not that any one of them is enough, but if you add them all up together, it kind of works. So, yeah.
Okay, so my slide is, sorry, briefly describe the blue ocean strategy. To accurately describe the blue ocean strategy, I think we kind of need to talk about the red ocean as well. The red ocean is going to be more of people competing in an existing market, whereas the blue ocean is looking where a company is focusing more on creating a new untapped market. They're creating new demand, new customers, whereas the red ocean is more of your aim is to beat the competition. The blue ocean is more of make your competition irrelevant, do something, innovate something that has never been done before. And I like to think of the blue ocean strategy as creating your own lane. Essentially, when you create your own lane, no one else can give you any type of competition because you're in that lane by yourself. So you get the first grabs, you're the first person to enter, you make the boundaries, you set the rules. So it's a really good chance for profit. Most companies that get into blue ocean strategy, they profit and have high profit margins because they're the first to do it. So they set the boundaries and they get the initial customers and the demand in that market. So the red ocean, one of the things I found interesting about this is it's called the red ocean because you're fighting competition is more cutthroat, so they call it like the bloody waters because it's sharks fighting each other for the prey, whereas the blue ocean is more of you've jumped into this untapped market and this untapped potential, so it's more like the sky's the limit. It's an ocean full of possibility and abundance of room for you to prosper. So that's why one is looked at as the red ocean and the other is looked at as the blue ocean. So like I said, the blue ocean strategy is going to be more of like creating your own market, your own potential, your own lane. And another goal is just to make your competition irrelevant. Don't fight with your competition, make it irrelevant. And what really stood out to me when I started researching this was a video that we watched last week, What is Strategy, with Michael Porter. And he kind of gave his view on how you should view competition. And he said a lot of people view competition as you have to be the best and beat the competition. But what you really should think of is how can you be unique? You know, what can you do to set yourself aside from that company? So I don't even have to compete with you because I'm doing things that are going to make you like you don't exist anyway. So that should be the overall goal when looking at strategy. And in my picture, I have, this is everybody competing in that same market. And then one person says, hey, I'm going to jump over here and try something new. Another thing, an example is the Nintendo Wii. They're in the gaming industry and they weren't doing so well. So instead of focusing on continuing to compete in that market, they thought, hey, how can we do something new? And they came out with the Wii, which attracted different customers. You now have families who want to play this together. Whereas in the regular market, it was just hardcore gamers, just the same type of customers. When they stepped outside of the box, they got a new set of customers. So that's just one of the ways that, you can use the blue ocean strategy to your advantage. So my next slide is this a favorable strategy? And I do feel like it is a favorable strategy. It's more of a pacifist approach, which some people may think that competition or competing is the better way to go, but that's not always necessarily true because if you look in the situation of Kmart and Walmart, I mean, if you're fighting the right person, then they can cause you to go extinct. So that's just something you have to think about before you just jump in saying, okay, our company's going to beat everybody, we're going to compete. You may want to think about a pacifist approach. And with the blue ocean strategy, you're ahead of the game. Because you're, like I said, you're the first person in that lane, there's more income for your company, there's more customers for your company. I mean, you get the advantage and you get to explore that untouched potential. And so essentially, I feel like pursuing this strategy is worth the risk. I mean, there's so many advantages that you can get. So my next question is, should Starbucks pursue this strategy? Starbucks initially pursued this strategy because, like I said in my last slide, they appeal to new demand and new customers. They're in the coffee industry, but they created their own lane in the coffee industry. So that's what they essentially did, is they did do a blue ocean strategy. So right now they're in this market. I don't feel like they should try to create another market because they're doing so well right now. I think that they should focus more on innovation in their current market. When you're already ahead of the game, I mean, just think of ways that you can improve and ways that you can be better right now where you are because you're already doing so well. So I don't think that they should pursue this strategy. I think it should be for more of a company that's not doing so well right now in their current market. And that is, so slides, next slide.
Yep, that's me. So the question that I was focusing mainly on was, according to the Playing to Win approach, what competencies has Starbucks in our case developed? What competencies should they continue to develop to better compete against their rivals? So, when you look at the book Playing to Win, they talk a lot about competencies and how to visualize them. When they talk about it, they talk a lot about the activity system, right? So to recap really what that is, that's a visual representation of a firm's abilities, and it really ultimately illustrates their competitive advantage. So with that being said, I kind of took a swing at putting one together for Starbucks. It looks really convoluted, and that's just pretty much because it is. And a lot of the ones that I saw for different companies, just to kind of get my ideas flowing, were very much jumbled up. But I'll get to why that's kind of important and why that's actually a good thing. So the authors talk about picking core competencies and, it being at least a 9 on a scale of 1 to 10 of your abilities within that competency for it really to be considered like a core competency, right? So I really considered what are the 3 things that Starbucks really does better than anyone else in their industry? What would be their core competencies, right? And then what are the supporting activities that help drive those every single day? So the 3 I came up with were differentiation, keeping the Starbucks experience, and then keeping a people first mentality. So those are 3 things that Starbucks really excels at and is better at than anybody else. And each of the other competencies support each other. So I don't want to exhaust the page and really talk about every single link that connects every competency, but I do want to hit some of the highlights. So if you look at the numbers on each of the core competencies, it really, what it does is it illustrates how many links they share with the other competencies. And that really just goes to show how important those 3 are and how they reinforce each other. So for instance, if you look at the center of the web, if you will, it's the Starbucks experience, right? And that's one of their core competencies, which shares 8 links with other competencies. So like some examples of those being, providing superior customer service, providing consistency, offering premium products, keeping their stores well maintained. So, and if you follow those competencies, they link out to other things and other competencies that they have, and they all really work to support each other and drive a better experience and sustain competitive advantage for Starbucks. And then the other part of the question that I needed to consider was development opportunities. So in terms of development of competencies for Starbucks, a lot of these are similar to the opportunities that Amanda talked about for the immediate actions for Starbucks. So it's good to see that we're aligned there. The first of them is their internet-connected experience, right? And this is one they're already rolling on. Their app is good, but there's definitely room for improvement there in the space, given the continuous evolution of the technological world and rising consumer expectations to go along with it, right? I wouldn't say that an interconnected experience is quite a competency of theirs yet, but they're making strides in the right direction. Like we've talked about before, things like scheduled ordering, easy pickup, etc. The second is diversification, more specifically diversification of their product offerings. So they're foraying into new products like teas, juices, and whatnot via some pretty smart acquisitions. But there's opportunity to expand that offering to attract more customers and meet additional consumer needs and wants, which leads into the next opportunity from a competency perspective, which involves expanding their retail operations. So most of their momentum right now comes from within their stores, their own brick and mortar stores, whereas their retail offering tends to be kind of a back burner position for them. So I think there's plenty of opportunity there to truly develop a competency in the retail sector and further monetize their incredible brand equity that they've built. And then finally, the last opportunity really kind of plays into all of the 3 others here when we talk about ways to get their products into consumers' hands, whether it's their new mobile ordering and pickup, delivery via Uber Eats, which I think Amanda talked about, and or Postmates or something like that, or if it's their retail channels, there's plenty of opportunity there to develop additional competencies when it comes to creating new distribution channels and getting their product out there. And that is the quick summary of slides.
Alrighty. What is core competency?
All right, I had just broken mine up into 3 questions since it's like 3 questions, so I just did 3 slides. But this core competency was created by a gentleman by the name of C.K. Prahalad and Gary Hamel as a management theory in 1990. And well, let me move this out of the way because it's kind of throwing me off, everybody. To the side there. Okay. It describes a distinctive talent that companies obtain from its creators and cultivates and cannot be easily copied. Core competencies are what give a company one or more competitive leads in making and carrying its value. Carrying value to its customers in a chosen area. So for me, basically in hearing that basically is kind of like Doris even spoke about, just kind of creating your own lane, doing something that nobody else has a leg up on as far as whatever type of product that you put out, and making yourself stand out, be unique, be original. And you go to the next one. So it asks, what are the core competencies of the companies for which you work? So I work for WellMed, which is part of United Healthcare and Optum, which is a health insurance company. And I work for an area called care management. And basically overall, WellMed works to prevent elderly people 65 and over from having to return to the hospital. So they really work really closely to take all preventive measures to kind of keep the patient as healthy as possible. The doctors, we have doctors on staff, we have home health supply, medical supply companies. We've got actual social workers, so they kind of work hand in hand to try to have the patient go to the doctor, get a checkup if there's something wrong, try to, of course, administer meds and whatnot, or if they're in a position where, they may need some physical therapy or something of that nature, have home health to come in, anything to kind of keep them more active, more vigor, which kind of helps to reduce hospital costs. So, like I said, we've got doctors on staff, we've got nurses on staff, home health, medical supply, we've got infusion therapy. The social workers may reach out in the community and they will try to see if resources, that a patient can get. So somebody's grandma's kind of low on food or something, and that social worker try to reach out and see what resources are available out in their area and try to help the patient to, if they have to apply for food stamps, or if there's a pantry nearby to try to get, some food in their home. They try to do everything that they can to make sure that their, preventative care stays preventative and, that they're more healthy. But there are some cases where people are just sick and, they try to work very closely in that so that at least they can kind of manage whatever is going on if they're not, improving or recovering from it, to just kind of make their condition kind of course, it's never going to be comfortable, but manageable, basically, even if somebody's, not going to survive any further. So it's a lot that I don't see that goes into it, because basically what I do, my title is the care team associate. So I basically am a file clerk. I like to kind of just keep it simple. Medical records come through a fax where a patient is wanting services. So I take those records, I create a case and send it to a nurse. The nurse reviews it, make sure that all the criteria is needed to approve it and that patient get those services. There are cases where there may be some information that's missing. If they don't get it in a timely fashion, then it'll get denied. It's kind of, like that. So it's nonstop faxes, of course, that are always coming. So I pride myself, I'm very thorough, and I'm like very anal about making sure that, you know, these things are in place so that the nurse can do their job. Because at the end of the day, I always look at it this way. I'm not a nurse, but I'm still, you know, within this healthcare field, I'm a patient too. So I want the best care for myself. So in me making sure that I have what I need in order to get my care, I'm going to do everything that's asked of me to do that. So I do that for patients. So that's always been me. And I've just been in healthcare pretty much, you might as well say, all my life, because my mom was a nurse. So I don't know anything else.
Okay.
And go to the next one.
Okay, and we are at 5.5 minutes left.
Okay. How does your company nurture its competencies? Basically, like I went over, it's a system of doctors, specialists, and experts that take care of 350,000 patients in Texas and in Florida. I'm in the largest market in Texas, which is Dallas-Fort Worth, and you can imagine how small our team is to handle that big of a region. But we get it done. And they are known as the leader in keeping adults healthier. That I'm aware of, we are the leader in doing this type of managed care. I don't think any other health insurance companies I'm not aware of that do this type of specialized care for these people in regards to, you know, chronic conditions, things of that nature. So specialists include cardiologists, podiatry, dermatology, you name it, people getting hysterectomies, people, it's some people that are not necessarily 65, they could be 35 and, you know, have some special needs that they're getting Medicaid and Medicare, they could be having a baby. We take care of that. So it's more than you actually would think it would be, but it's just, it's very informative, so.
Okay.